when you're ready to go like 10 seconds out, yeah, just let me know.
Ready whenever you are.
Okay. Hi, and welcome to the NBA Economy Show. This is Fritz Alcindor, and I am with a great guest, Brandon Scoop B Robinson. He is a well-known NBA insider. If you're from the East Coast, you definitely know Scoop B. But absolutely, one of the best in the game. I really admire what he does. Not all insiders are the same. Not everybody who calls themselves an insider is an insider, but Scoopy has really proved himself. Welcome to the show.
Brother, thank you for the introduction, and it's good to be on your show. Thank you for having me for real, for real.
Oh, thank you for taking this time out. Small channel, but you really thank you for looking out.
Of course, we gotta look out for our own.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a pretty my audience from the Nick of Time show has a large Nick contingent. So of course, one of the moves, one of the things that you've had brought out was there was some mutual interest between Ben Simmons and the Knicks. The Knicks also had interest. Has there been any progress with that?
So yeah, I appeared on another show about a week ago, and I discussed Ben Simmons and the Knicks link with the last roster spot available. And I know that there's been a lot of conflicting reports that have been out there, namely about the Sacramento Kings, the Boston Celtics, and more. And when I was on that show, I said that there is mutual interest between both the Knicks and Ben Simmons. And from everything that I know, there still is a level of interest. I know that Brian Windhorst has gone on threads and said that, Ben Simmons would make a decision within the next week. And in my digging and just question asking amongst folks that are in the know, Ben Simmons is looking for a place where he can fit, where he can distribute the basketball and when they're shooters. And when you look at the New York Knicks, they have that with Jalen Brunson for one, and also guys that can create their own moves to the basket. And they've made some moves in the offseason with Clarkson to solidify that. And they also have Carl Towns who can shoot the ball. So, from all indications that I've gotten, the Knicks are in the mix, but there are some other teams that are available. And the Celtics is a thought process of Ben Simmons for a couple of reasons. Number one, Jason Tatum being out for quite a bit of time does give more options for players who are looking to audition for their next role. But the thing that I am a little bit concerned about with Ben Simmons in Boston, namely, is the fact that I know that in the past there are players that are on that team that have said some things on record about him, kind of clowning him in the past, and even a teammate of his that he had in the past that I'm not sure if they shored up their relationship. So I know Sacramento has been talked about, but I also know that Mike Brown salivated over the notion of Ben Simmons potentially joining the Sacramento Kings last season at a point, and it didn't happen that way. So I think that the combination of the shooting and guys that can get open shots, the defensive prowess that Ben Simmons does offer, as well as um, his ability to play defense at a high clip, are attractive to the Knicks, and hopefully Ben Simmons makes his decision soon.
Yeah, absolutely. He brings a lot of versatility to the Knicks. If he did come here, like he could play point guard, he could play all the way up to power forward
Or
center. So like I think having a versatile person like that absolutely would help the Knicks. You know, not everybody is looking for the the uh, the old 25 9 and 9 Ben Simmons, but he's still a very valuable piece in the NBA.
I spent some time with Ben Simmons during this season, um, right before he was with the Nets, and we kind of took it back to the essence of just injuries and the back. And I shared with Ben a personal story where last year I was working out with my trainer and my back gave out, and I said to him, there was a point where I actually could not get up, like I was laying in my bed for like a day, and the first thought process that came to mind was Ben gets a lot of heat because of his back, but there are some other issues besides that. But the thing that I focused on was the back and the injuries. And I shared with Ben, I said, I really didn't realize, I don't play, but I never really realized how pivotal or how important your back is until it gives out. And then you can't stand up. You can't, do some of the things you need to do. You can't walk to the refrigerator to get some water. And he smiled and he goes, yeah, like I asked him basically, would you rather hurt your knee or your leg or your back? And he said, you need your back more than you might need your leg. Like your leg, you can heal from, the back gets tricky. And then in our conversation, we started talking about some of his influences in basketball. He told me that the three guys that stood out to him on the basketball court growing up were LeBron James, Magic Johnson, and Dwayne Wade. Wade, I did not know his ability to attack the basket. Early in his career, he played the point guard position in Miami and then kind of switched over more full time to the two. But LeBron and Magic were two guys that he really watched tape of Magic, and then watching LeBron early in the Miami Heat days and even in the Cleveland days, the first stint. And as I'm thinking about that conversation then, and I'm looking at a fit now with the Knicks, if he were to sign with the Knicks, I think the thing as a backup coming off the bench that helps them quite a bit. I think of Jalen Brunson when he got hurt during the season. He was out for a period of time. Um, there were questions that I had about playmaking, and those questions were actually answered. I think Jalen Brunson actually getting hurt actually rallied the troops on that team and allowed them to kind of figure out what life would be like. And I think you saw another flash of that again with Carl Anthony Towns, where there was a point where he was out, and you kind of saw what life would be like without him. And then once they all got it together and went into the playoffs, they kind of they did get it together. It just wasn't the outcome that many thought would be. But imagine a world where Ben Simmons was in that equation, both defensively and as a playmaker. I think his ability to see the court above everybody. I know a lot of times I've heard this rhetoric in the offseason. People talk about Ben Simmons mixtape videos in the offseason are like Zion Williamson's, and people compare that. And I think in this instance, when you look at Ben Simmons, you're not asking him to come in and be a starter. You're asking him to come in and give you 10, 15 minutes a game, play defense, and get key playmaking stats. I also think his presence defensively, blocking shots at people against people at his position, is something that is supremely underrated. So I do think Ben Simmons is a fit. I think the Boston Celtics would be a fit as well if he's looking to kind of get more playing time and also get into that spot alongside Anthony Simons and as well as Jalen Brown. But I think if you're looking to compete for a championship, I think the East Coast is wide open. Uh, and I think that the Knicks would be a fit for him if that's what he's looking to do. But I think 25.99 at this point, no, we're not looking for that. We're looking for a guy that can come off the bench and can shore up some minutes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the underrated part of Ben Simmons is that he gives you options. I think last year, you kind of put Mikal Bridges on the best guard, and then you put OG on the best forward. I think if you add Ben Simmons to the mix, maybe Mikel doesn't want to play that guy, and then you could put Ben Simmons in there, or OG doesn't want to match up against this one guy. So you have a little bit more options to have in the mix. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think it'd be a great mix. Ben Simmons, if you are listening, there are fans in New York. We do want you here. I think it would be a great fit.
yeah. I think coming from that Clipper system, ultimately getting the buyout with the Brooklyn Nets, and then finding his way to the Clippers. I think you saw flashes of what many people fell in love with his in his game, playing alongside James Harden, Norman Powell, Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers. And then as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about what you said just about the players that were brought in. Mikal Bridges, to me, I think coming into this past season, there was this expectation that he was going to some I felt, there was this expectation that you would be seeing Phoenix Suns, Mikal Bridges. And I think Mikal Bridges has seen both sides of the spectrum. You've seen the spectrum of playing for the Suns and being a viable six man, and then going to Brooklyn and being the man or expected to be the man. And you'd hope that you'd find some middle ground in New York at Two Pennsylvania Plaza. And I think for the Knicks, it started off slow for Bridges, and then he ended up finding his way. I think that defensively, um, Ben Simmons is going to give you those stops. Um, I think if you're looking at the Celtics, you're looking for shots. If you're looking at the Knicks, you're looking for defense and you're looking for playmaking. I think the Knicks is a better fit for games where you expect Ben Simmons maybe not to play. It's a better cover there than it is in Boston.
Yeah,
And I'll add this, like there was a few years ago, Sacramento was looking to bring in Ben Simmons via trade. This was during the time where the conversation was being had about James Harden and Ben Simmons, and Simmons ultimately being traded to and Harden coming to Philadelphia. So Sacramento has salivated over him for a long time. I also know in years past, the Golden State Warriors were another team that were looking to bring Ben Simmons in as well. NorCal has been calling his name for quite a while. He did find his way to Southern Cal with the Clippers, but he's played most of his career in the Eastern Conference, playing for the Nets and the Sixers. And New York is a familiar territory, just a different borough that he played in. And I've seen things online where people say, well, he doesn't want to come to New York because of the fanfare or lack thereof that he got in New York. It's a different environment at the Garden than it is at Barclays Center, even though people are familiar with your game, either having played for the Nets or playing against either team as in a Sixers uniform. I just think the Knicks would be a good opportunity for him to kind of repair the perception or his image, and I think winning cures all. I think that's a situation. But to just go back to what you asked me, the Knicks and Ben Simmons do have mutual interest in one another. It's a matter of which team he decides to pick.
yeah. Hey, thank you for the update. Hopefully, we can get an answer soon on that. The Knicks only have a couple roster spots left. Um, yeah, so definitely thank you for updating the fans on that. Um, we have seen this is this the second year of this new CBA. Um, these new rules, I think at some point people's like uh didn't really know what going forward, but this year is kind of the year where it really kind of sank in. We start seeing buyouts. We start seeing some maneuvers that we've never seen before. I, has has this new CBA affected particularly the Nets? um, um, because we see they are a rebuilding team. They do have cap space, but at the same time, Cam Thomas is not re-signed.
Yeah,
Um, and there had been like a few rumors on what the offer would have been last week, a lot of people thought it came in kind of low. Um, do you think that's is it indicative of how they feel about Cam Thomas going forward? Do you see him as a long term piece in New Jersey? I'm sorry, New Jersey, in Brooklyn.
Um, so to kind of break down your question a bit, one, I think you're seeing in the NBA at large, where there are guys, three guys in particular, Jonathan Kuminga, Cam Thomas, as well as Josh Giddey, who believe that they deserve more
Hmm.
what is being offered. And you're seeing it play out in real time. And I think um, Cam Thomas is in an interesting situation because I feel like the Nets are setting the mark. It seems as though the Nets are setting the marketplace, and in turn, a lot of that perception is being fed to some of my colleagues, and then is being regurgitated. And whenever you say things enough and people hear it, they begin to believe it as fact. Um, I know that to be true because as a reporter, enough people say you don't have sources. People believe that to be true based upon everybody saying it. It's a copycat league.
Hmm.
To go back to your question about Cam Thomas, I think that he's in a situation where people look at him as just a scorer. And I think there is more to his game than that. But the general consensus, I think, from the national audience is that he's just a scorer. And he's had 3 or 4 straight games where he scored 40 points. I also think Cam Thomas both benefited, and I think it was somewhat to his detriment as well, that he was drafted around the time that and played on a team where it was the rise of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and James Harden, and then them ultimately being traded and exiting there. And I think sometimes there's a belief that just because those guys left, that's why he got that much those he scored those amount of points. I also think that the Nets post Kevin and Kai leaving has been an open market for guys, for guys to put up stats, and people wonder if that will materialize somewhere else. It's kind of like I remember Chris Humphries playing for the Nets. You talked about New Jersey. I remember Chris Humphries playing for the Nets in New Jersey and then matriculating over to Brooklyn. And he was putting up double stats in New Jersey. And then when Darren Williams, Joe Johnson, everybody came over, he had an abdominal strain. He was married to a Kardashian, and then you never heard from him again. I think sometimes, depending on the dynamics of a roster and who you add or subtract, will be contingent upon how a player plays. And I think that's what's been painted about Cam. I think the only difference with that is that Cam was well respected way before he came to Brooklyn, coming out of LSU. I just think he wasn't a top lottery pick. And so, because he's not a name, people people scratch their head and ask questions. Um, and I think that for Cam, I think the Nets for his style of play is probably the best spot. The problem is, I wonder if he's traded somewhere else in a sign and trade. I wonder if those skill sets will matriculate to another team. There's been conversations from some of my colleagues about you know, Cam potentially being traded to the Pistons in a sign and trade for Ivy out in Detroit. And I wonder what Cam in Detroit would look like. I'm concerned about just his market being devalued because enough people are saying it and counting it as fact. And I also think that the NBA at large is changing in a world where we often have, in at least 20 years ago, have cheered on guys who score a ton of points. It's almost like the volume scorer is now looked down upon. And I wonder if that's signaling that we're going to more of a European style of game, and B, we're actually reverting back to what a point guard was supposed to be, meaning like John Stockton, and in today's modern times, Chris Paul. That skill set of play. Like, I wonder if we're reverting back to that. Um, and I also think Cam is in a similar situation, like is being put in a situation like a Lou Williams or Jamal Crawford, as being a scorer for hire. And both Lou and Jamal Crawford have proven that they can start. But their specialty for their respective teams was coming off the bench. I also think that Cam is a bit undersized at the two position, and he's not a distributor at the point position. So he's kind of like in a tweener situation, like a Ben Gordon. But Ben Gordon was still effective. He just didn't have longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for the insights on those. Uh, there is one player I've kind of had questions on, and I haven't seen any videos on it. But in Sacramento, previously Devin Carter was supposed to be the incoming point guard of the future. Um, they kind of waited for him to come back from injury, and very quickly they have pivoted, and supposedly he's on the trading block. Do you have any idea why they pivoted so quickly on Devin Carter?
No, but I do know to kind of add to what you're asking me. I know that Sacramento does want Russell Westbrook. And in order to make that happen, there are some moves that are going to have to be made. And Carter might be on his way out. I've also had conversations with league folk that have intimated to me that Malik Monk um, may be on his way out and that the Lakers are a team of interest. I know Malik and LeBron have a good relationship. So um, there's a lot of logjam at the point guard position in Sacramento. Um, and I'm wondering if Russell would be able to shore that up. I think Russ gets a lot of crap thrown his way. And I think through and through, he's found ways to still be efficient at his age and at his position.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's a certain subset of the Knicks fans who don't want older players on the Knicks, and one of the players whose name keeps coming up in articles. I don't think there's a lot behind it, but LeBron James' name always comes up. Do you have any insight on how the Knicks actually feel about LeBron James? Um,
He has a lot of ties to LeBron James. I mean, he's known William Wesley since he was in high school.
mhm.
William Wesley is well respected. Leon Rose, he's known for years. And then he has ties to guys that are on that team. He has a good rapport with Carl Towns. He has a good relationship with a lot of guys on that team. I just think that if you go back to my reporting earlier this month about LeBron James, there are four teams that have reached out to his agent about his availability, and of those four teams, it wasn't the New York Knicks. It was the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Cleveland Cavaliers. There were three of those teams, and the Dallas Mavericks as well was the fourth team. LeBron is a guy that can fit on any team, but why? I'll take it back a bit. I thought the Knicks did a bit too much in firing Tibbs, and I think to if you were to not only fire Tibbs but trade your roster hypothetically to bring in LeBron James, I think that would be catastrophic when you're trying to win a championship and you haven't won one since the 70s. I think LeBron is a piece that you bring in either if he gets a buyout or at free agency next offseason. But I just don't think you blow up the house to bring in someone who is of his caliber. I think LeBron is a phenomenal player. You've not seen someone 40, 41 years old make the moves that he's made and be healthy. Like the only person that has done this at this age and hasn't done it to his magnitude was Michael Jordan when he played for the Washington Wizards. And it's very different in how he did it. Michael was more of a fadeaway jump shooter, could drive to the basket, get layups. I enjoyed watching his last game. Um, as a member of the Wizards playing against the Knicks in the early 2000s, it was poetry. But as far as LeBron coming to the Knicks at this point, I've not heard anything substantial, at least coming into this season, that would indicate that that is something that is plausible. You know that Rich Paul, who has a client in Jordan Clarkson with the Knicks, and the only thing that I can think of that would probably make your viewers salivate over that is the fact that you now have a clutch client that is in New York, playing for the Knicks, and you never know if that could be an introduction to more of a conversation. And it reminds me of Kentavious Caldwell Pope when he played for the Lakers before LeBron got there. And Kentavious Caldwell Pope being a Laker and still being in the fold in Los Angeles allowed both Rich Paul, LeBron James's agent, and Anthony Davis's agent to have more fluid conversation with both Magic Johnson, who was the president of basketball operations at the time, and Rob Pelinka, who was the GM at the time, about other things. And ultimately, that was an entry point. And LeBron did become a Los Angeles Laker, and Anthony Davis was traded a year later to the Los Angeles Lakers excuse me. So you never know. But maybe Jordan Clarkson is that thread to bring LeBron to, or at least a conversation started with Leon Rose and William Wesley and Rich Paul. But as of now, no, I don't know anything that would suggest that that is a realistic possibility as contractually where LeBron is now.
Oh, thank you for the update. I think a few people are breathing easy in the chat. That's most of the basketball questions. I know you are an avid wrestling fan, and I just want to know what are your thoughts on the complicated legacy of Hulk Hogan? Because I know you like it's part of a lot of people's childhood. Like me personally, I know the characters, but I really didn't watch.
So in answer to your question, one, I grew up liking wrestling quite a bit. Um, Probably in the '90s, probably up into the early 2000s. I watched from afar now, but Hulk Hogan was definitely a part of the fabric of my childhood, and it's a complicated legacy because of things that were said, that were made public. And in today's time, there are many people that suggest that you can't separate the offense from the offender. And I think post Bill Cosby, that is something that has become more of a targeted conversation or a nuanced conversation. And so I think I do get it. I think he said some offensive things as an African American. Using language, non-inclusive language in your home. It is kitchen table talk. You shouldn't be using it, but it became public consumption, and that's not a good look. And it kind of felt like he was arrogant in the way that he approached it after it was uncovered that he said it, and that's unacceptable to do. And so, I know a lot of his colleagues. I'm very friendly with a lot of his colleagues, both black and white, who have both shared with me that that is unacceptable. And then the other part of it that is unacceptable is, I guess, from having conversations with some of his peers when the WWE, they were trying the wrestlers were trying to unionize and become more of a united front. He was very adamant, from what I'm told, and removing himself and breaking up that monotony so that they could not be unionized. And so that's terrible. I will say that on the side of him as a wrestler, the thing that I did admire about him was his branding and his ability to own his name, own his likeness, and kind of see into the future of what that looks like in today's climate. But he wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. On a basketball front, not comparing him to this person, but Michael Jordan was very forward thinking and branding and ownership, and passing on the torch to the next generation and merchandising and more. You've seen it in many instances where athletes have done that, celebrities have done that. So he definitely set the example. But in wrestling, John Cena has also done it. I think he paved the way for Cena. He paved the way for The Rock, and he did it in multiple wrestling leagues. He did it in WCW when he left the WWE and went to WCW and was in NWO. And I think he's done a lot that has pioneered the wrestling sport. But I do think that there is a blemish on his name based upon the things that he said, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. He's also very part of the. It's not. I live in like the New Haven, Connecticut area, and the WWF has a lot of ties to the area. Even I had to like double check because there's something I've always wanted to know. Because everybody saw my dad always said, "Oh, because he doesn't watch wrestling." But he said, "Oh no, they all live here. They live here, and they used to live here in the building." So I double checked, and with Hulk Hogan's passing, we did live in the same apartment building as most of the WWF
Oh wow.
stars because the training facility was in West Haven, Connecticut. Um,
Wow.
so I, you know, he's very much into the fabric of the area. He has left his imprint on wrestling forever. So that's something to think about. Um, just on a lighter note, you have spent a lot of time in the New Jersey, New York area. As I said, I'm from like the New Haven area, and so a lot of people will always ask which pizza is better, New Haven, New Jersey, or New York. Do you have a preference?
Um, I think I realized I had a preference when I went away to undergrad in the Philadelphia area, and the dough tasted differently. I've lived in New Jersey. I've lived in the Bronx. I've lived in Harlem. I
Mm-hmm.
spent some significant time in Westchester County as well.
Mm-hmm.
To me, some of the best pizza that I've had was in the Bronx. But I've also had good pizza in New Jersey and at Ray's Pizza and Verona. So I mean, I kind of feel like my perception of locale is a bit different because I've traveled and I feel like even if it's in New Jersey, it's probably New York inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I've also had conversation with friends from Connecticut and I've seen polls on social media that suggest that Connecticut pizza is better than New York or New Jersey pizza. And so I've not tried. I've been in Connecticut, but I've not tried Connecticut pizza. But my fondest experience of pizza has been um, Ray's Pizza in Verona, New Jersey, and a spot on Gun Hill Road in the Bronx that I enjoyed as well. And they're good spots. I actually don't eat pizza anymore. I
Oh
don't eat
man.
dairy.
Okay.
So if I eat a pizza, I usually get it without cheese,
Mm-hmm.
and I the toppings and tomato sauce. I've been not eating dairy since 2018.
Okay. I have a friend like that too. He has like a tomato pie. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's actually pretty good.
yeah.
It's actually
So
pretty good.
especially if it's Sicilian, because you got the thick dough. It's kind
Yep.
of like going to Chicago. I've spent significant time in Chicago as well. The deep crust pizza reminds me of New York Sicilian slices as well. So but having it with tomato and vegetables and things like that. I don't eat cheese and I don't do the dairy thing anymore. And but I like the dough. I think the dough definitely makes the pizza. As I mentioned, going to school in the Philly area, that's when I really noticed that the dough really made the pizza. And going other places and traveling the world, you kind of see how everybody does it differently. But New York and New Jersey, the thin crust is definitely a staple. But I actually the Sicilian, if you're really trying to get full, the Sicilian crust is definitely a vibe as well.
All right. Thank you for answering that.
What
Um,
about you? What do you think?
actually, you know what? I didn't try New Haven pizza until maybe 20 years ago. But
All
New,
right.
New Haven, the thing is, what they don't tell you is New Haven has like a great 7, 8 spots. But the thing about New York, you can get a great spot on so many corners. So like it isn't a whole bunch of great places. They have like a handful of like excellent, excellent. It doesn't taste like New York. It's a different style of pizza. It's a different style of pizza.
I
Um,
gotta try. I gotta, when I stop in Westchester, I gotta go a little bit further. Stop in Connecticut, New Haven, and check.
absolutely. Whenever like if Yale ever gives you a call, like have them I have them take you. So it's really really good.
Okay.
Yes, I really appreciate your style of journalism. Um,
Thank you.
it's just a lot of people try to be part of the story, and kind of insert them, insults and going back and forth with, and they could become part of the story. But you really have great relationships with players, and I really like that they sit down with you. They have an interview. It isn't like I'm calling a player out and then we're going back and forth. So I really give you props because there's I see a lot of people trying to take the shortcut to get in their face on television, and I really appreciate you doing it the right way.
Well, I appreciate that. It was not always easy. Even though I had an early start working for the Nets for 2 years and hosting their kids radio show as a child, I ended up, leaving that and going back to being a high school kid and college kid and getting my education, doing what I needed to do, and then coming out of school, building back. There was a point where I freelanced about 10 to 12 different publications, was living in my grandmother's basement, and was paying her rent, and was also, adjuncting at a couple of different colleges. And over time, just building, local relationships. Whether that was, Kyrie Irving, Carmelo Anthony, Jabril Peppers, who was in high school at the time, and just really building, and then also using social media to my advantage. I think I'll tell you, growing up, I hated going to the doctor because I hated getting shots. And, most athletes hate sitting down with media the same way. And so I said to myself, how can I find a way to make it a painless visit to the doctor, asking questions, and really getting to know people on a familiar level, and then going to places that they go just because I enjoy, going out. So, whether that's the local spot in LA, or being a member of Soho House, or just various things, and just finding common ground so that when they see you in those places, they feel more comfortable, and you can do what you got to do and they can do what they have to do. It's just finding common ground, and not all media people are bad, just like all police officers are not bad. You just have to find common ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, yesterday I saw your interview with Ricky Williams, and I was like,
Oh wow.
oh, and then I was like, Ricky Williams looks really relaxed, because because those old Ricky interviews were quite interesting. Like he looks happy. Like I really enjoyed that interview. Sat down, it's like 20 minutes. If you subscribe to Scoopy's YouTube, you'll definitely see it. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Ricky is we found common ground because we were talking about marijuana and his business, and talking about mental health. There were questions about football, but there were also questions about where he is now. Ricky and I actually met in the spring. I was moderating a panel at Georgetown University in DC, and he was on it, and with a couple of other people. And before the event happened and after the event, we talked, we exchanged numbers, and stayed in touch. And Ricky is an interesting character. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm glad that he was able to sit down with Scoopy Radio and discuss a ton of things. Make sure to check that out on my YouTube channel at Scoopy TV, and check it out for yourself.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a really really good interview. Yeah, you're. I remember watching you as like when you were a young kid on all these on the. I'm not sure. Was it a Nets? It was on the Nets channel
Yeah,
to
I
now.
had a kids show on the radio with Evan Roberts over WFAN, Albert King, and a woman named Lynn Wilson called Nest Slam and Plan, and they actually featured it on NBA Inside Stuff with Amar Rashad when I was a kid.
Yeah, I remember that episode. Actually, I'm looking forward to maybe Inside Stuff coming back. Um,
Same.
when NBC comes back. Hopefully, Summer Sanders will be there. Hopefully, she will be there. Um,
Hello, Bag or Ahmad.
yes, yes. Hey, actually, I would love the old crew to be back. I would love the old crew to be back.
Would
Um,
be
yeah, any of these new media, these new, we got these new media in the for the NBA for the upcoming season. Any of them you're really excited about?
I'm just excited to watch basketball in any shape or form. I think the Amazon deal is interesting because it's digital, and all the other major leagues have had digital offerings before the NBA, and so this is the NBA's first run. It's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out with Amazon, particularly, with the younger audience who, their attention spans are pretty quick, and so I think that'll be interesting. NBC for nostalgia's sake will be interesting, just because I grew up watching. I remember 1991, the Bulls winning their first championship, and that was my point of entry with the NBA. ESPN, to me, as well as ABC, has kind of just become the gold standard in a way that NBC was, and before NBC, CBS was. I mean, so like I said, I am the AT&T. I have good relationships with all those guys on that platform. Kenny, Charles, Shaq, Ernie, and it'll be interesting to see how that transpires over to ESPN, specifically because, for years the criticism has been that their halftime show, the pre and the post, it's been a revolving door. So it'll be interesting to see how that all takes shape on the ABC and ESPN front. But the games are the games,
Yep.
you know.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I think NBC did really, really well was their like profiling players. Um, for those big games, like you really got to know like players in a positive light. That's something kind of been missing for the NBA. Like you kind of get the news on players, but to like really get to know the players behind the scenes, to really like the players in the NBA, NBC had a big part in that
If you
in
think
in
about
past
it,
years.
I'm with you, and I think if you think about it, that profiling those players in the 90s is similar to the WWE, who at the time was the WWF, having superstars. And superstars was the news magazine format of that on Saturday afternoons, right before American Gladiators, that kept kids, interested in you're recycling content from Monday Night Raw and then Survivor Series and SummerSlam. And then when you look at what the NBA did comparatively with Inside Stuff, NBA Inside Stuff was a television magazine show that was interesting young kids. And then you had the magazine that served the same purpose. And then NBA.com came along, and then that was a boom in the 90s. And I think when you look at the NBA currently for adults, that's what the NBA today is. It's an adult version of the magazine format show that lets the community know what players are doing outside of just shooting a basketball. So I think it'll be interesting to see how NBC kind of counters that, as well as Amazon with their programming, both digitally and in house on television, and as well as all the streaming apps that NBC currently has. Like, we went from watching Bel Air on the streaming app to now maybe we watch NBA on NBC, or we watch NBA Inside Stuff on those apps as well. It'll be interesting, as well as the Olympics. I think that NBC has had a head start, and be interesting to see how not just NBC but Amazon and ESPN, just caters to the next generation, the next generation, and the current generation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's are definitely things to look forward to. I don't want to keep you too long. We know the off season isn't over, and we know that we need to stay tuned to you because you always give us the best news. You always try to be very very accurate. Like I know there's a lot of journalists out there. They try to stretch a little truth, add a little bit in there to make the story a little juicier. But it's really nice having on, giving us like accurate information, um, having those great relationships. So we really really appreciate you and what you do for the NBA community.
Brother, thank you for having me, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. I'm going to the pool.
Yep, absolutely. So where can everybody find you?
Twitter at Scoop B, Instagram at Scoop B. Subscribe to Scoop B TV on YouTube, TikTok, Scoop_B. Make sure to subscribe to the Scoop B Radio podcast on our streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, uh, Spotify, and also check out the Scoop B blog. get a lot of traffic there. We're not just video; we're in written form, and but all the stuff Scoop B on Twitter is the hub for people to find out everything that is going on with the brand that is Scoop B.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you had some really good things up there. I saw the mentorship for young aspiring broadcasters. So that's something to look forward to, and you can actually people can actually donate to. So it's very a very good thing you're doing. You're giving back to the community. All right. So we thank you for coming on today. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. Again, thanks for joining the NBA Economy Show. Please like and subscribe if you like the comment, and put a one in the chat for Brandon Scoopy Robinson. And you have a great day.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right.